Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm very happy that you are returning, and this is the second episode of Isdalen woman case marathon on my channel. For the new ones watching this video, make sure you watch the first episode, and yes, this video is dedicated to the famous and mysterious Isdalen woman case. And I think my video is a little bit different and maybe unique. And differs from all of those available on the YouTube, because we are actually visiting some of the places where Isdalen woman was staying or seen. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow I'm releasing the third episode, and this is going to be enough for this week, just for the food of thought, let's say like that. And the next week we are having even more exciting videos. Again, they will be published one after another. So yeah, let's start. And among these things, as I listed before, were also plastic bottles. When the body was moved from the place where she was found, they actually found a fur hat underneath her body, and it also had some very little traces of fuel that would signify that maybe she tried to burn herself. And also, if she burned herself, she must have brought with her some kind of container with fuel. And these empty water bottles maybe were the ones where she was carrying this fuel. They were tested, and they found out that in these bottles the only thing that she was carrying was water. So we can conclude the following: it is really weird. Either she came there to make a suicide, but considering all the facts and the things surrounding her, it doesn't really look like suicide. Maybe she was waiting for somebody and it was kind of date, but again, too weird place for that. And maybe she was just simply killed. So an autopsy was done, and it was really hard to define what kind of age was this woman. However, police understood that they will not get anywhere without the help of the public, so they published the results of autopsy on the newspapers and media, so that people who might have noticed her could give some kind of clues. The autopsy of the body concluded that she died from poisoning from carbon monoxide, and they also found some soot in her lungs, which meant that she actually was alive while she was burning. Such a crazy death. But when toxicology results came in, they discovered that she has been actually consuming quite a huge deal of sleeping pills, which is weird, because if you want to make your death more peaceful by eating sleeping pills, why the heck you would like to also burn yourself? But yeah, the conclusion was that she died from poisoning from carbon monoxide and also from sleeping pills. But just an idea, maybe she did really burn herself, but before that she just ate the sleeping pills just to make sure that everything goes the right direction and she will actually end her life at the end. But anyway, it's strange. Actually, the investigative journalists were speaking to the person making autopsies, and what he said about this case was as follows: it's an open verdict. It's not concluded if it was an accident or a suicide or a homicide. So even according to the specialist, we cannot be sure. They also removed her jaw and her teeth, because her teeth had a very unique golden dental work, which wasn't very specific for this area, and it had to be investigated more in details. And also they took some examples of tissues from her organs. Here I am in the Bergen railway station. It didn't look like this, of course, in the 1970s. At that time, there were some special sections where people who came to Bergen could put their suitcases, and then they just could then pick up and go further. So 3 days after the Isdalen woman was found, a couple of people working in this luggage section contacted the police, stating that there are 2 suitcases in this luggage compartment left and nobody is claiming them. And they thought this could be from the Isdalen woman, who was already announced on the newspapers for people to recognize. And so the police came, they took these suitcases, and they found some very interesting things in these suitcases. I will talk about them a little bit later. So how can police be actually so sure that these suitcases belong to the Isdalen woman? Well, in these suitcases there were sunglasses. Sunglasses had a fingerprint, and they compared this fingerprint to the fingerprint that was of the body they found on Isdal Valley, and it suited. So basically these sunglasses belonged to her, so therefore these 2 suitcases left in Bergen railway station actually belonged to this mysterious woman without identity. In these suitcases, the police discovered the following things: 100 Deutschmark notes. Among other items, they found clothing, shoes, wigs, makeup, eczema cream, 135 Norwegian kroner, Belgian, British and Swiss coins, maps, timetables, a pair of glasses with non-prescription lenses, which meant they were just to use as an accessory, which also kinda puts a parallel with the watch that I was saying before. Also, they found sunglasses with partial fingerprints that matched the body, cosmetics and a notebook. And again, there were no traces that could explain something or lead to her identity. Even the tags from the clothing were removed, cut off, and this kind of proved the fact that she didn't want people to know who she was, where she was buying the things, and maybe she didn't want the shop assistants to recall her visiting the shop. The most intriguing, in my opinion, at the beginning, item from these suitcases was the notebook. It contained handwritten some kind of symbols, letters and numbers, which really much looked like a code. And of course, they also looked into these notes, and some discoveries were made. But again, I will talk about that a little bit later. Bear with me. So the Isdalen woman was found in the Isdalen Valley on November 29, 1970, but the suitcases were put on the luggage section in the railway on November 23rd. So what happened in between? What happened during these days? Was she going somewhere? Was she talking to somebody? Were there witnesses? Or maybe she just went straight to the Isdalen Valley from the railway station. But after a serious looking at all of these things that were in this suitcase, they also discovered a plastic bag that had a sign that this plastic bag was taken from a shoe store that was in Stavanger. Let me remind you that one of the objects that was found on the crime scene was a rubber boot nearby the body. And the police understood that this boot can be linked to this plastic bag and the shoe store in Stavanger. The journalists from the podcast went to the shop, and they actually had a little interview with the shop assistants that were working on that day when the Isdalen woman was buying these boots in the shop. One of the persons working on that day in the shop, his name was Rolf, and he was in his 20s at that time, and he actually recalls talking and kind of serving and helping this Isdalen woman while she was still alive and wanted to buy rubber boots. He recalls that there was nothing so very unusual about her. The only thing that made her stand out was that she couldn't actually decide which boots she would like to buy, so she was kind of walking around and still she couldn't decide. and then she went away, and the next day she actually returned, and only then she bought these rubber boots. So she was very undecisive. So asked about how did the woman look, he asked that she was very well dressed, looked very normal, good looking, and when she was speaking he understood that she is definitely not Norwegian because she wasn't speaking Norwegian, she was speaking English, and English was with a certain accent. Therefore, we can conclude that her native language is not English and also not Norwegian. Another very significant thing that Rolf recalled was that she had a very unpleasant smell and very strong smell, which he recalls being somewhat similar to garlic. And this was also confirmed by his colleague who was also working in the shop on that day, and she also said that she recalls that she smelled somewhat like a garlic, very strong and unpleasant smell. Also, when the woman came back and she was decided to buy these boots, the pair that she was trying on was too small, so Rolf had to go to his basement for a larger pair of boots. And he recalls that the woman was shouting something while he was going away, and it was in some kind of other language. He wasn't sure, he didn't recognize, but it was something maybe French, maybe German. When the investigative journalists looked into the police report with the first information that Rolf was giving to the police after they came to the Stavanger shop, they noticed that Rolf had actually said that this woman was a very French-looking woman. So that was actually like the first impression he had when looking at her. After solving the rubber boot mystery, more or less, the police started to look for clues in Stavanger, because as we remember, Rolf from the shop said that she didn't buy these boots on the first day, she returned on the second day. This means that she most probably was staying somewhere in Stavanger, so police had to look at the hotels in the city. So they landed in a hotel called Saint Svithun. The staff told they actually had a woman that was very much kind of looking like the lady in the description that was put out in the media. She checked into the hotel under the name Finella Lork, and there she wrote that she's coming from Belgium. One of the cleaning staff ladies actually remembered that there was this woman also kind of looking like the lady in the newspaper, and also she was wearing those rubber boots that she obviously had bought in the shop. So it looked like, yes, really, this lady had stayed in this hotel. The journalists actually went to this hotel and met the person who was working during that time in the reception. And she recalled that the lady under the name Finella Lork booked a very insignificant room, no bathroom, and she had a silent voice, but she wasn't shy, but she was surely very secretive. An important thing that this lady on reception noticed in Finella's appearance was her fur hat. These kind of hats were not popular and not seen in Norway at that time for sure, but now we know that these are very popular in Russia. And also she recalls that she had some golden teeth, and this was also very unusual for people living in Scandinavia, and usually this is associated with Russian people who have these golden teeth in their mouth. The investigative journalists also met a person who was working as a bellboy at that time in the hotel, and he actually took her suitcases to the room. So they were together in the lift while going up to the 6th floor, and he asked her, "From where is she coming?" And the lady answered in English with an accent. She replied that she's coming from Belgium, and this bellboy said that she was a very distinctive looking. She, I quote, had a lot of makeup, red lips, very serious, and not one of the crowds, so she definitely was standing out. She stayed in this hotel from the November 9th up to November 18th, and November 18th was the day when she bought the boots. So basically she bought the boots and then checked out from the hotel. Most probably at that point she was going from Stavanger to Bergen. But still, the question remains, what was her agenda in Stavanger? Was it a tourism? Was she meeting somebody there? We still don't know the answers. Later on, the police actually found the taxi driver who was taking this lady from this Stavanger hotel. He also said that she was very non-typical Scandinavian. She looked very sexy, pretty, and she spoke poor English. Now let's move to Bergen. So after coming to Bergen, she might have stayed in some hotels too. So police started to look for Finella Lork in some Bergen hotels, but there were no results. And a very interesting thing is that police actually connected with Belgian police. They asked for some details regarding Finella Lork, and they gave the passport number that she was providing in the registration form in Stavanger Hotel. And still, Belgian police confirmed that a person under this name and with this passport was not like a real person. They didn't have any data about this kind of person in Belgium. Police didn't give up. They started to analyze the handwriting in the registration form of the Stavanger Hotel. Also, they started to look for this kind of handwriting in the registration forms in other hotels in Bergen and elsewhere in Norway. At that time, it was mandatory for foreigners, to fill in a special registration form in each hotel they were staying. So they started to look for the same handwriting in different registration forms all around Norway. They found many of them all around Norway, especially in Bergen, which means that she's been traveling around for quite a while.
As it later appeared, she had also been traveling with different identities throughout the Europe, like Paris and London and many other places.
The confusing fact is that she was writing down 7 different names in these registration forms, and all of them were confirmed by Belgian police as invalid. These persons did not exist. I will stop you there. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope it is mysterious enough, and I hope that you are hooked on this story of mysterious Isdalen woman. Next time we are going to discuss some of the controversies that Isdalen woman left on the registration forms in the hotels that she was staying, and we are also discussing a little bit of spy theories and some of the facts that make us think that she might also be a spy. Exciting enough, so see you tomorrow!